Welcome to San Joaquin Spotlight, a public affairs program featuring conversations about life in the central San Joaquin Valley. This program is brought to you in partnership between KFSR 90.7 FM and CMAC Fresno. I'm your host, Sevag Tateosian. Today we have a local author in the studio. Her name is Jesalyn Harper. Welcome to the program.
Thank you for having me.
So let's talk a little bit about where you're from originally. I understand you're from a small community in Fresno County.
Yes, when I say I'm a local author, I am local. I grew up in Squaw Valley,
Up
California,
in the mountains?
Up in the mountains. But I was actually born here in Fresno. I lived in Squaw Valley for about 20 years, pretty much my whole younger life, and then I moved to Sanger. So now I'm kind of in between the two.
So Squaw Valley, where is it for people who have never been there?
You know, how I usually describe it is I point in that direction because a lot of people get it confused with the smaller communities like Prather. But it's on the way to the Squaw Valley Park, the Sequoia National Park, going up the 180. So you drive right through Squaw Valley on the way to the big trees.
And then you have a popular pizza place up there, Bear Mountain Pizza.
Everybody knows Bear Mountain.
And then the library is right across the street. So it's a nice community up there. I've been there multiple times.
Yes.
So now you live in Sanger. And so tell us a little bit about, who you are. I mean, when did you decide you wanted to become a writer?
Well, I've always considered myself a storyteller. I didn't actually put pen to paper until later, closer to about 21. I entered in contests in school, took a creative writing class in high school. I also do paintings and art, so I took some classes like that, but I never considered myself an actual artist that would go out and sell my work. But when I actually had an accident and I was bedridden for a while, I, for my sanity purpose, put pen to paper and started writing, and I actually wrote my first book, Fabled Desires.
Well, and that's such an interesting story because I didn't know that. And, I tried to look up information about you for the interview, and I had no idea. So you took something negative and you've turned it into positive. How hard was that whole process?
It was difficult at first. Before I started writing, I was really depressed because I had been such an active person. I hurt my back, and I used to do horseback riding, hiking, gardening, and I couldn't do it anymore. I was off my feet for a while. And a couple of friends were actually kind of concerned about me getting depressed and not having a creative outlet like I used to. So they suggested me keeping like a journal. Well, I would write about my journal, but there's only so much you can write about when you're bedridden.
Yeah.
So I actually started writing short stories. And a friend of mine read some of them and thought they were so good that I should elaborate. And I started actually working on putting chapters together for a story.
Wow, interesting. So let me backtrack a little bit. As a child, you were a storyteller, or when you were younger, you were a storyteller. How important is that, or how has that helped you in your writing? Because, I imagine storytelling would have to be an important component here.
It really was my parents encouraging me to have an imagination, to be creative, to tap into that creative aspect of my mind. And I've never had a problem with it because it was embraced in my home. So I would draw a picture and they would want to know the story behind the picture. And I didn't have any problems or I had the confidence to express what was going on. So when it came time for me to actually start becoming an author, I didn't have a problem tapping into that.
You mentioned something interesting. Your parents encouraged you to do this. A lot of parents out there will say, go become a doctor, go become a lawyer. And I'm exaggerating, I know. But your parents encouraged you to use your imagination. How important was that in your life?
It was a huge thing for me because I was artistic and I had this desire to express myself and my imagination, what was going on in my life. I've really found that expressing what I'm feeling in my art is actually a good form of therapy for myself, to express what's going on. A lot of people read my book or look at my artwork and say, wow, this was really emotional, this was really touching, I related to it. And I've learned to write or do my artwork in those various stages, and it helps it become more relatable to other people. So really, my parents were kind of the foundation for me to start writing and be creative.
So this year I became a parent, and so I have a 1-year-old. And
Congratulations.
thank you very much. Now, I find myself teaching my child what my parents taught me, or I find myself doing to my kid what my parents did to me, whether it's hugging them or kiss on the forehead and telling the child what my parents used to tell me as a kid. Now, are you doing the same, or will you do the same with your child?
Absolutely. Me and my son actually are working on a children's book series right now.
Oh, how cute.
So, yeah.
That's cute.
So he has his mommy's talent. He enjoys telling stories when I come home every night. That's what he wants to hear. And that's exactly what I did with my parents. I would come home, I would want to tell them all about what happened at school, and they would listen to it. And I'm doing pretty much the same thing. It's inherent. I don't know any other way of parenting pretty much, so.
How proud will you be when the first set of children books get published and you and your son both worked on it?
You know, I'm already proud, and we're not even fully complete with it yet. I'm already proud. He tells everyone, see, when I first started writing Fabled Desires, that's my first novel that released, I didn't tell anyone I was writing a book because I didn't consider myself an author. I actually didn't fully grasp that I was an author until it was published and I was holding the book in my hands. My son has skipped way ahead of that. He tells everyone, my mommy's an author and I'm going to be an author. He's got no problems telling anyone about that. So,
now let's talk about the book. Name of the book and what the topic is.
Okay. My novel is Fabled Desires. It's my first book I've ever written, and it's an urban fantasy. Now, urban fantasy is the fantasy genre in modern day time. I took mine to a different level, and mine specializes primarily around mythologies, ancient mythologies. So I like to call it an urban mythology. And it's about a woman that is an orphan and finds out that she is descendant from Norse gods.
Interesting.
And has special gifts inherited from her genetics. Unfortunately, though, there's a little bit of a twist to it. It's not all happy-go-lucky. She actually finds out that there's a war going on between all of the ancient families and the fables, and she kind of gets stuck right in the middle because of a prophecy. The prophecy states that she is going to determine who wins the war, pretty much.
How did this topic come about? I mean, you know, how did you come about writing about this very topic, and did it at all change?
It did. At first, when I was writing it, I had that there were going to be a woman with gifts, but I didn't necessarily tie it into mythology. It was kind of two separate things. But the more I wrote it, I've always enjoyed ancient mythologies, especially the Norse mythologies. Once I wrote the book, I started incorporating more of the mythologies, and it actually became about them.
How much research did you have to do for this? I mean, I would think that you would have to do a lot of reading before putting it on paper.
You know, I've always, when I say I love ancient mythologies, I literally mean that. I was one of the bizarre kids in the 3rd or 4th grade that told the teacher, I want to be an Egyptianologist when I grow up. I was that dedicated to it at a young age. So I had the basics down, but I really, because of my love for them, wanted to try and stay as true to the stories as possible. So if there was something that I needed a refresher on, I would pick up a book, refresh my research and everything before I went forward with it.
So there's a lot of things that, in this book, there's a lot of things that people who have studied that area will relate to or will know about.
Absolutely. In fact, I have a lot of friends that have studied the mythologies and really enjoy them. And when they read them, they pick up on it more than some of the people that aren't familiar with the mythologies.
So let's talk about actually publishing this book, when did you know that that was the final draft? Because I imagine you went through it over and over again, making changes.
It's funny, I actually made changes up until like the last week before I sent it to the publisher. So I wrote the book. I had a couple of friends read it, and they gave me their opinions, honest feedback, and so I tweaked it a little bit here and there. And then about a week before I actually started sending it to publishers and agents, I wrote the prologue. So believe it or not, the prologue was the last thing I
Wow,
incorporated
interesting.
into the book, which is kind of my writing style. I tend to jump around, but that was the last thing I added, and that was a week before I started sending it out.
So how long did it take you to write this book?
It took me about a year, maybe a little over a year, but the primary meat, the foundation, was done within a year.
For people who are writing a book, is it a speed contest? I mean, do you just whip it out and then send it to the publisher?
Not at all. In fact, I tell people that are trying to write their first book or short story, take the time you need. Because if you're going to market it and put it out there, you need to be comfortable with what you've written. You need to be proud and have confidence in it. And if that means it takes you 5 or 10 years to get it done, it's something that you like and you know people will enjoy.
You mentioned something I was going to ask you later on, but thank you for going that route, marketing. So important in today's society. Talk about marketing and what you're doing to help with this book.
Yeah, I've actually heard a famous actor say this: if you don't have confidence in yourself and believe in yourself, then no one else is going to have the confidence or belief in you. And that's kind of how it is nowadays. You need to be willing to put yourself out there. You need to be willing to talk to people about your book, or otherwise no one's going to hear about it. Our society really thrives on the word of mouth marketing now because of social media. So you need to get it out there. You need to be willing to talk about it and promote yourself, because it makes you stand out from all the other writers and authors out there.
How hard is that part of it? Because, you know, some people out there who have never experienced marketing or even writing a book may think, you know what, I'm just going to put all my thoughts together in a book, send it to the publisher, get it published, and then it's going to sell hundreds of thousands of copies. Talk about that.
Okay, as a person that thought that would happen for me, you really, in today's society with the social media and the internet, it's really easy to get published or even self-published. So we have thousands of books coming out week after week. You have to make yours stand out. You have to make it catch someone's eye. And if that means submitting it to a publishing house that wants to expand their fantasy department, or to a smaller one and working your way up to a larger house, it's what you got to do. It's just getting your foot in the door.
There's a couple of words that used to be negative, but now the definition is changing. Self-promotion. Mm-hmm. In this line of work, how important is self-promotion, and should people be embarrassed when they self-promote?
They shouldn't be at all. I was very shy and very nervous about self-promoting when I first got started, because like I said, I didn't consider myself an author. I'm kind of an overachiever. I said, if it's not published and in my hands, I'm not considered an author yet. But when you're first starting out, no one's heard of you. No one's heard your name. They don't have the confidence behind your book. They don't want to spend the money to buy the book. But once you start getting your name out there and you have people that are saying, hey, I read this wonderful book, check this out, that is what starts the chain, the ripple effect of it becoming bigger and bigger. But it doesn't happen until you actually step forward and make an attempt yourself to put yourself out there.
So you get the book published. By the way, talk about the publishing process a little bit. I mean, was that difficult?
Writing the book was the easiest part of becoming an author. Just to say that. For me, I had a difficult time because I was so new with getting my book out there. A lot of publishers wouldn't even read my manuscript.
So you don't, I'm going to stop you there because I always smile. I mean, you don't have the Hollywood name so that someone says, oh, we're going to publish this book. I mean, it's tougher when your name ID is not up there.
Yes, yes, exactly. So I was submitting to at least 100 publishing houses a week. When I wasn't submitting to publishing, I was submitting to agents, because a lot of them won't even look at your manuscript if you don't have an agent. And I got told no quite a bit.
But you kept going.
But you have to keep pushing. And that's part of the self-promotion. You don't give up. You say, oh, okay, it didn't work with this one. Let's try the next one. And when I finally found my publishers, they were wanting to expand their fantasy department. And when they read my manuscript, they loved it. It was just what they were looking for the fantasy department, and they jumped on it. But it took me a little while to find them too. There's an equal amount of writers and publishing houses out there nowadays. You just got to find the right one.
So when you found out that this publishing house wants your book, what's going on in your mind? I mean, what are you thinking?
I was in shock. I was in shock. I was looking at my email going, they liked it. After so many rejections and refusals, I was like, wow, someone actually likes my book and wants to actually back it financially. I have a kind of a traditional publishing agreement where they paid for my editor and everything. So they really believed in my book to be able to financially back it like that. So that was the highest compliment to me because it came from my brain. So it was an amazing...
Congratulations, by the way.
Thank you.
So let's talk a little bit about the name. How did you pick the name?
Well, Fabled Desires. Fabled represents, if you look up in the dictionary, it represents the mythologies, the fairy tales, everything. It's fabled. And that was part of the series because when I wrote Fabled Desires, I started the outline for a couple more books. And Fabled was planned to be in the title for each of those books to connect them together. Now, I put Fabled Desires because the main character, Faith, she's descendant from Norse gods, and one of the gods that she's primarily descendant from is the goddess of love. So we had Fabled Desires, and then the sequel I'm working on is Fabled Deception.
Wow, so there's part 2 coming out.
Part 2's coming out soon, too.
So why should people buy this book? I mean, there are people listening to the program now that are from all over Fresno County, and they're interested in what's going on in our community. What makes them say, you know what, I'm going to buy that book from Miss Harper and I'm going to read every page of it?
Well, I've had 2 main reasons I've been telling people to buy my book. One, it's a wonderful book. I've had all different manners of people read it, men, women, young adults, older people. They've all read it and they said that they enjoyed it, that it was an easy read that they could sit down and actually get engulfed in, where you can't put it down. It's a page turner. But then I also tell people Fresno is a community that really supports its local artists, and writing is an art form. So I explain to them that artists don't do good unless people are making the attempt to support them and purchase whatever they're selling, painting, books, anything. So I've been telling people if you support that community artist, you're supporting the art, not just the artist.
How can people buy your book and where can they find out more information about it?
The book's available online through Amazon and Barnes & Noble, and that's paperback and ebook. Now, in stores, it's available at All Things Fresno, a book barn in Clovis, and in Sanger, if they're living in Sanger. The Sanger Art Hop Mixed Messages Gallery has some copies available as well.
So I want you to tell us your publisher as well, because I get excited when publishers actually pick up books because that means a lot for the author. And, you know, that means that the publisher saw something in that author. And there are tons of books that don't get published that are great books. So your publisher, who's the publisher? And, you know, tell us about them.
It's Fountain Blue Publishing.
Okay.
And they're based out of Los Angeles. So it's a California company. They were expanding their fantasy department. They really have an open door policy where they want submissions. They want to hear what's going on out there. my publishers, I have a very good relationship with them. They're all very avid readers, and I think that's what makes a good publisher.
And on behalf of Fresno County, thank you very much, because, here you are, a resident of Fresno County, and an LA publisher has bought your book. So when you talk to them, tell them the host of San Joaquin Spotlight says thank you for that.
Absolutely.
So I want to go back a little bit and talk about your parents. And so when you actually had your book published, we talked about how excited you were. How did you break the news to your parents? Like, by the way, Mom, Dad, guess what? I just got it published.
It's actually really funny you bring it up, because when I was writing Fabled Desires, I had a back injury, but my father was actually diagnosed with cancer terminally. And to cope with that, I was writing as well, putting those emotions into it. And I never had the confidence to actually tell my father I was writing a book. And he ended up passing away before the book was published. Thank you. So I ended up actually dedicating the book to him. My mom, I was excited, but her first reaction was, of course you're getting published. That's what you're meant to do. So she was really, really excited and has really backed me. I gave her a special thank you in the book as well. She's my grammar Nazi. She's the one that reads everything and approves it for me. I'm unfortunately one of those authors with a very creative mind. Grammar, though, that's why I have editors. So, yeah. But she was extremely excited.
It sounds like you've taken some negative things, or not negative, but you've taken some challenges that life has thrown your way, and you've turned them into this book. For those who are going through challenges right now, who are not seeing the light at the end of the tunnel, what advice would you give them?
There's always a light at the end of the tunnel, and what moments that get you down are what's going to make you in the end. If I didn't have my father sick, me with my back injury, I might not have ever picked up a laptop and written down my book. It's those moments that are going to bring out the artist in you, and they're going to make you shine. It's not, I've always felt that a personality isn't defined by how strong you are. It's how you get through those moments. It's how you pull yourself up from the bottom. There's actually a really good quote I heard recently that says, hitting rock bottom is the best foundation for building a new life.
Interesting. I mean, and you look at some of the success stories out there, you hear the same kind of thing where someone had to be fired from somewhere, or someone had to lose something, and then then they start climbing up the ladder. I mean, it's perseverance, which is amazing. And your story is incredible.
Thank you.
About those challenges that you've overcome. So let's talk a little bit more about this book. Now, who's a fan of this book? Or what type of person would pick this book up and say, I love it?
Like I said, I have a huge fan base. A lot of people look at the title, Fabled Desires, and they automatically assume it's this romantic novel. But I've had a lot of gentlemen that read it and really enjoyed the suspense. There's a war going on. There's a lot of fight scenes. They really enjoyed my fight scenes. I actually practiced karate, so I took a lot of that training and incorporated it into the book. So what you're reading isn't something I just saw on TV. It's something that's actually choreographed. So there's really just a wide variety of people that would enjoy the book.
We're running out of time this week on the program. What advice would you give to young authors out there? I mean, from my experience, there's a lot of people with these great ideas and great imaginations, but you took that, you put it in a book, and now you're distributing the book, and you're working on the second book. Talk about what advice you would give to those who have those great ideas, because there's a lot of creative people out there.
Mm-hmm. I tell people, don't give up. That's the number one thing. You're going to have people reject you. You're going to have some person that's having a bad day say, oh, I didn't like this book. I didn't like this. Don't take it personally. You can't win them all over. Just keep trudging along and do what you feel is right. If you feel like you need more time to work on it, then take the extra time to work on it. Writing is an art form. You finish it when the artist feels it's finished.
How do you define success? I mean, are you successful now, or is there something else you're trying to achieve before you hit that bell that says, I'm successful?
You know, for me, I think the success level is different for everyone, including artists. A lot of people would look at it and say, wow, you're published, you reached your goal. For me, I want to leave a lineage behind for my children. I want my son to say, that's my mother, that's the author, which he does very good right now. But I want to leave something behind for my children. That's something that I really stress about for my career goals.
Tell us where we can buy the book. How do we get in contact with you? I noticed you have a Facebook page, so tell us a little bit about how to get in touch with you.
Well, the book is available on Amazon and Barnes & Noble and at some local stores. Now, I actually do have a website, and that's JesalynMayHarper.com. People can go on there. I have a news and updates section where I post I'm going to be having book signings. I'm actually doing a book signing this weekend for the Vintage Pop-Up here in downtown Fresno. So any book signings, I post online for that. If you're following me on Facebook or Twitter, you will automatically get them to your feed. So look for me on those as well.
Excellent. Lastly, final thoughts. I mean, what's next for you?
Well, like I said, I'm working on some children's books. I've become a member of the art community, so I've been doing a lot of painting, a lot of modeling. I'm just telling everyone to keep your eyes and ears open and to go and check out everything that I'm involved with, my books, my art, everything.
Thank you so much for coming on the program. We're out of time, although I could have talked to you for another hour.
No, I really enjoyed it. Thank you for having me.
That's all for this edition of San Joaquin Spotlight. To the volunteer crew that make this production and every production possible, thank you. We couldn't do it without you. We couldn't do this program without people who are listening and watching the program on KFSR 90.7 FM or the CMAC channel, Comcast 93 and AT&T 99. Also, the programs are all available on YouTube. Thank you to our guest, Jesalyn Harper, for coming on the program.
Thank you for having me.
I'm your host, Sevag Tateosian. Tune in next week to a new edition.